Today on Portland Tea Party, the arts hustle. What is it like to be a professional artist or a professional performer? I almost said the other thing. That's another episode here in Portland. I'm Ciara Pressler, and this is Portland Tea Party.
You have a game-changing idea, but you need a game plan.
Welcome to Portland Tea Party. I'm Ciara Pressler, your host, and we want to say a very special happy birthday to our producer, Erin. She is remote with us from a whole other country, enjoying her birthday in Mexico City. So we just want to say thank you, Erin. We love you and hope you have the absolute best day. Well, back here in Portland, it's been quite the week. We're not a news show, but let's tea about the news. Some things are happening. Last week, we told you all about what's happening with the Oregon legislative session. This is the sprint session, the short one. So they're trying to hear as many bills as they can and keep things moving. They did pass, they voted in favor of a bill that would enforce a $35 limit on insulin, which is wonderful, right? Of course, but 3 people voted against it. Can you imagine being against affordable insulin? I don't know. Someone needs to follow up on that story. Over in the Portland Mercury, they are wondering the same thing we are all wondering, which is how are we going to fund Portland Street Response? Now, I'm confused because, as you know, I'm a fan of Portland Street Response. They were a client of my company. We helped onboard and train a lot of their people. And at the time, they were funded. And then they weren't funded. And now they're at a deficit. But then someone's going to get money from another place and move it over there, even though that money is not supposed to get moved. I don't want to get too into the details, but what's going to happen? I think there's overwhelming community support for Portland Street Response. It's an absolutely necessary emergency response mechanism for the city. We want to see it succeed. So, of course, we need them to have the resources they need. And they have been working on a very lean, maybe even under-resourced structure to date. So let's really hope that they get the funding they need, but it's something that is sustainable so that they can keep getting everything that they need to be successful and to support the whole emergency response mechanism for the city of Portland. Over at Willamette Week, they are breaking some news that Nike is going to lay off 2% of its staff globally. That's almost 10,000 people. But how much will that hit Portlanders who work for Nike here at HQ in the Portland metro area? It remains to be seen. So don't freak out yet. You know, I've been laid off before. It ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me. No, maybe not the best thing that ever happened to me. The best thing that ever happened to me was you tuning into Portland Tea Party. But we'll see what happens. Don't freak out. Have a good Friday. We'll see what happens. Maybe, you know, if they're leaving their jobs at Nike, they want to become professional artists. Let's find out today whether that should happen. We are broadcasting live from Cargo in Southeast. If you haven't been to Cargo, what are you doing with your life? It is the most amazing store, like this big warehouse of curiosities and crafts and just top level beautiful things. If you're looking for the perfect gift, I don't know where else you could possibly go. Come to Cargo. It just like sparks all of your senses with the colors and textures and all the things that you can see here. And there's just such a much bigger store beyond what you see. And I'm really happy to talk about the arts today because that was my first career. I was a performer, not here in Portland, but in New York. And I did that for about 5 years. And then I decided I'm out of here. I didn't want to be on that side of the business. And so I moved over actually to the administrative side of the art. So I've been on both sides. Like, you know, when you're an artist, a performing artist, you are the product. And if you're an artist maker or creative, you're making the product yourself. But it's so hard to also think like a business person and be objective outside of yourself. And so I wanted to talk about that a little bit. Also, the first book I wrote was called Exit Stage Right. I'm kind of more known for my book Game Plan, which is about goal setting and achievement. But the first book was actually Exit Stage Right, and it was about how to change careers or find a new career after having been a full-time professional performer. And so it's very specific, but you know, when you are changing careers, there's that total panic moment of like, what else could I possibly do? And I do think there are some ways you can go about it that make it more of a joyful journey. But let's talk about the hustle of being not just an artist, not just somebody who enjoys creating as a hobby, but someone who is also making it part of their livelihood. So I am joined today, a very spontaneous guest, I'm very grateful, by Michi Kagawa, and she is merchandiser manager here at Cargo.
I curate and merchandise and actually go by they, them.
Okay, thank you so much for correcting me.
Absolutely.
See how easy it can be, everybody? We can all get along that way. So, first of all, the first thing you notice about the store is that it's perfectly merchandised. And so you've done a beautiful, beautiful job. I mean, have you always just had this innate sense of aesthetic?
I think in my own spaces I have, and it's definitely been fine-tuned by the creatives that have been in the space and the amount of opportunity that there is here between textiles and artwork and architecture. So kind of combines everything that I love into one space.
And you are an artist yourself.
Yes, I am.
Tell us about what you do.
I use the Japanese concept of motanai, which is essentially using existing resources that are out there. So I love to work with kimono textile and old ephemera papers to create artwork and also to design fashion pieces. So try to stay gender and size inclusive.
Thank you.
And just try to bring joy in whatever I do.
I can see it. I looked briefly at your site before this, and your art is just beautiful. And I'm sure that's just a fraction of what you've done. Were you always an artist, or was it something you discovered?
I've enjoyed creating since I was a child. I don't think I gave myself the platform until I was let go from a corporate job of being a retail manager. So after I was let go, tried to make my own space, and with that, my creativity was able to blossom.
Yeah. So you basically have two jobs or two businesses or career lines that are complementary. You are working here and you're running your own label, basically.
Well, as I work here, it's actually a part of my business.
Oh, great.
So curating for different spaces, it's not just Cargo, but that is where I spend a lot of my time, or at least a regular interval of time here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, I said a little bit before, but the life of being a creative person whose product is their creativity is so challenging, and I don't think that it's easy for anybody. What are some of the challenges of doing it here in Portland?
I think some of the challenges is trying to find the right community for your particular art style or your niche, because there are so many different opportunities. So finding the one that you connect with the most, and also making sure it aligns with like your core values of where you want to be.
Yeah.
I feel like that is part of the challenge of navigating the creative space as a professional.
Yeah, because it can be lonely working solo or having everything. I mean, as an entrepreneur, I also feel that of like everything's on you. Sometimes you need people who can support or just kind of understand what you're going through.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like at least here at Cargo, there's always an opportunity to rise above, and the amount of creatives in this space are very uplifting and easy to connect with. So it's definitely just one foot in front of the other and putting yourself out there. I think that's the other challenge as a creative. Sometimes you want to be that introvert, and it takes an extra step to push yourself outside of that.
Yeah, I feel that. I go through this like put myself out there hangover, where like anytime I like MC an event or even do this show, like the next day I just want to hide.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely just like restoring your energy and getting back to having that to put back out there.
Yeah,
absolutely,
for sure. What are the joys of doing art in Portland? What makes it conducive to an artist's life?
It is a joy and a pleasure to be able to share experiences with others, to be able to bring a sense of connection. And also, for me, I learn a lot. I glean a lot from the people, the creatives that I'm around on business level, on creative level, and just an emotional support level.
Yeah.
I think that is one of the joys. It's expressive in whatever I'm doing, whether it's a paper mache or it's ikebana or it's designing clothes. Like, it's able to express where I'm at.
I just have to ask, because you have so many different mediums you work in, like, how do you hold all of that? I can't imagine being able to work with all these different types of media and also be able to produce so many different types of things. Like, how?
It's a lot about inspiration, and it's a lot about follow through. Those are definitely like areas that I have to navigate and decide, just kind of streamlining processes sometimes. And I don't know, for me, it's very much about where I'm at and what is being asked of me. Like, if I'm curating, to be able to do custom artwork for that curation space is so much fun that I love to pick up and learn. So I feel like that is, I don't know, part of how I'm able to navigate it, just like understanding, like, I know I need to do these things to keep myself as a base level, and then these other things, as I'm inspired, kind of just come out in the flow.
Thank you so much. I'm overwhelmed by how much artists make a city more livable, more joyful, more magical to be part of.
Yes.
And it's such a gift, because you are, always hustling to keep your life going, and while always giving to the community. And you may not even meet the people who benefit from your art. So I just want to thank you for doing that. It really makes living here better.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to share.
Absolutely. We will link the art and the links in our show notes. So please come to Cargo, check out what's here, and also come to the website. Tell us again where to find you.
It's iki.creative. It's an Insta handle. So
great.
That's where you can find me. Iki Creative. Iki.creative.
Okay, IKI.
Yeah.
Yeah, just search that and you will find what you are looking for.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
When we come back, we will meet the star of Kinky Boots, playing next month downtown here on Portland Tea Party. What a delight and pleasure to have tea with my very good, very dear longtime friend, Michael Hammerstrom, star of Kinky Boots, which opens on March 8th at the Winningstad Theatre, is being put on by Stumptown Stages. Michael, thank you so much for coming today.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Yes, well, tell us about Kinky Boots. For those who don't know about the show, what's some background on the show itself?
Oh, of course. Well, Kinky Boots is a Tony-winning Broadway musical that was written by Harvey Fierstein and music by Cyndi Lauper.
What?
Yeah.
Amazing.
The one and only. And it's really a show about two men from very different backgrounds who both have severe daddy issues. That's what I say. But there's Charlie Price. The show takes place in England, and he is the reluctant heir to a shoe factory that is failing. And on a chance encounter, he meets a wonderful drag queen named Lola. That's the role I play. And Lola inspires him to take his factory in a whole different direction and start manufacturing boots for drag queens.
I didn't know that was the plot because I never saw it when it was on Broadway.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
this sounds so fun. And so, okay, you play Lola. Is this your first time in drag? And are you in drag the whole show? How does it work?
Yeah, so actually, like, I have a rich history because when I lived in New York, we overlapped a few years.
Yes.
And I was working as an actor, and in between gigs, I bartended and worked and hosted at a drag karaoke bar. So I was doing impersonation drag. I would be Tina Turner one week, Whitney Houston the next week. So it's kind of been in my blood for about 20 years.
Wow. And do you stay in drag during the show or do you change out?
The biggest challenge with this show is that I'm presented in drag at the beginning, and then you know, the story takes a few twists and turns, and my character comes out of drag in the middle of the show and presents as his authentic male self. And then in Act 2 goes back into drag. So
That sounds like a lot of backstage stuff to do
you
during
know,
a show.
it's like I have all the lines down, the music down, the choreography, and then I realize, like, oh yeah, I only have 10 minutes to breathe in this show, and during that time I'm actually just re-putting on makeup.
Wow. Tell us a little bit about what makes this production special for those who may have seen Kinky Boots before.
So I think one of the things I'm most excited about is our choreographer. His name is Jeff George. He's a local choreographer, and he's a classically trained dancer who also has done professional drag. And so not even the Broadway show can boast that their choreographer was an actual drag queen.
Wow.
So it brings an authenticity to the look and our movement that you won't see in any other production of Kinky Boots. But we do steal a few things from the Broadway production, including a very famous number where we are dancing on moving conveyor belts in the factory.
So in Portland, we are getting the conveyor belt experience.
Sure are.
You better be buying your tickets right now during this segment because this is going to be sold out by the end of today if people are knowing about this. I'm so excited. I already have my ticket so I can promote it. When you first told me you were taking this role, you told me it was a role of a lifetime. And why is that the case?
Gosh, I mean, you know, Ciara, we grew up doing theater together in high school, and we were probably the only two biracial kids doing theater in Oregon that we that we knew. Certainly
true.
at our school. We're part of a small club, you know, and when I was growing up and I realized that I wanted to do theater, I didn't see myself on stage, ever. And so the first time I saw Kinky Boots, it was this story in 2013. That's how long it took, right? And it was a story about a black queer man. And I just never seen a leading role, you know, centered around a person like that. And, you know, Billy Porter won the Tony for playing this role.
Oh,
and
love him.
went on to, you know, he had already had a very established Broadway career, but after that he went on to become Billy Porter, you know, and really find his authentic self and go on to win an Emmy and do all the things. And he's an inspiration to me. And when I first saw the show on Broadway, I really couldn't believe there was this story about a black queer man who didn't feel connected to his biological family. I'm adopted, which is something for your viewers, and I have a great relationship with my family, but of course there's always that piece of where do I come from?
Yeah, I mean, I feel that too for so many reasons. So as you said, Michael and I have been friends for almost 30 years.
I know.
I know.
That's
like,
crazy.
Age reveal. But so we went to high school together at Westview, which is technically in Portland, but it's Washington County. But Beaverton School District, what's up?
First graduating class.
First graduating class. So it was the mid 90s, and certainly, like, really there were less than 5 Black people at our school, for sure. And you know, Beaverton's far more diverse now, which is exciting to me, having like nephews that are actually at Westview now.
Yeah.
And then, you know, let alone, no one talked about gayness, being gay, being queer, none of that. It was during like, what is it, Proposition 8 or something like that,
Yeah.
you know, and it was a pretty conservative area, really, where people would say and do a lot of ignorant things.
Yeah.
And so, you know, of course, where do kids like us go? We go to the theater so that we can try on different people and ways of being, and, you know, helps to be talented. But we had the most amazing program at Westview under CJ Reed. Well, wait, is that right?
Yeah,
Yes.
Carolyn,
Carolyn,
or CJ, people know her
CJ,
as.
yeah. We're all still friends with her. She's retired now, and anyone who went through that program knows how wonderful and how hardworking she was. But we got to be the leads in the musicals and the plays for 2 years in a row together, and had that safe space to kind of be silly and to explore, and then we both went into the arts.
Yeah.
Too, professionally.
Yeah, and we both wound up in New York for a few years
Yeah.
doing the hustle, and somehow both found our way back to Portland.
Yeah, I think, you know, we probably had similar experiences, although you were musical theater more and I was more doing like theater and some on-camera stuff. And, you know, the difficulty of that hustle, like you can be the best at your high school or in your city, but like New York's the best of everywhere. First of all, it's very competitive. And second of all, being the best doesn't necessarily mean you're cast, because at that time too, people weren't casting like racially ambiguous people.
No.
Yeah.
If you were cast in Law and Order, you were the guy in the hoodie. You know?
Right,
I mean,
right. Or like, I think I was like an extra on Saturday Night Live once to play like a drug addict.
Yeah.
Luckily they didn't air the sketch, but like, yeah, they didn't know what to do with me.
no. No. We didn't fit into any of their boxes.
Right.
You know.
And it's so rewarding now, especially post 2020, to see so much more diversity and people that look like us on screen. Like, I'm obsessed with First Wives Club right now, the sitcom, and it has Michelle Buteau, who's like my girl, because I'm like, oh, I like a multiracial person with freckles. This is so great. Yeah, so I think the world has caught up with us.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah, and one of the most special things about Kinky Boots to me is there's a little spoiler alert. In the beginning of the show, you see a younger version of my character.
Oh.
And it's being played by a young woman named Nia Scott. I think she's 10 years old. And she is also biracial and growing up in Portland. And it was right about her age that I kind of started to get the theater bug. So seeing her coming up, and even having me as someone to look up to
Yes.
in the business, and it's deja vu every day when I see her, and I just remember all those feelings we had as kids, and
How special.
for her to be growing up and be given roles. She played Matilda at Portland Playhouse.
Love Matilda.
In Matilda, you know. We never saw
No.
a biracial
They
Matilda
never would have
with curly
cast
hair.
a non-white Matilda. Yeah, it's true. Well, let's talk a little bit about like the fast forward. So we were performers. We both went into the administrative side of the arts. What was some of your experience? Because you went to DC. Tell us a little bit about how your career evolved outside of performance.
Yeah. So I knew I wanted to. I didn't actually ever know I would come back to being on stage. That happened a little later. But I knew I wanted to find a career that was a little more lucrative. I mean, shocking. But still like involved in the arts. And where I ended up landing in DC was at PBS. I worked on the PBS Kids team, and I actually trained teachers on how to incorporate PBS Kids content in their classroom.
How rewarding.
Yeah, and it was a show every day. You
Yeah.
know, that's how I looked at it. It was really a performance every day. So I got into that kind of world of nonprofit management that was really arts adjacent. And that ended up moving me back to Oregon to lead marketing and development at Oregon Children's Theatre, where I worked for about 5 years through the pandemic. I really think my mission and reason for being there was to help the organization through the pandemic, now that I look back on it. And from there, I foyed into a job at Oregon Public Broadcasting, where I am now, which is kind of back in my public media roots, but still very much involved in arts and culture every day.
It's amazing. And you're also balancing the day job of working in arts administration and supporting arts being available to everyone while performing and rehearsing at night. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they don't tell you, is in Portland, to be a working actor, usually you have 2 jobs. So I usually do 2 or 3 shows a year, and they each take 2 or 3 months, you know, so that's most of your year. And then I'll do little cabarets or 1-week readings or something like that on the side. I have a talent agent who helps get me on camera work.
Great.
And really what that does is supplement the stage work, because it pays
right.
a little
yes.
more. So you'd learn to just kind of juggle and hustle, and everyone always wonders, like, how do you work 12-hour days? How do you sit in an office for 8 hours and then go be on stage for 3 hours? It's so cliche, but the answer is you do what you love.
You have to love it. Like, this show is my version of being able to perform again, right? Like, I like doing this sort of performance, and like, it is on top of my job. Like, I have to keep my business going, and like, it's complementary to my business maybe, but like, honestly, I could be at work right now.
Sure. But I mean, some people go out dancing every night.
Yeah.
You know, I go out and do that on a stage.
I love that. Yeah. How else do you think that starting out as a performer or with arts education has helped you in life?
Gosh, I mean,
big question.
Yeah, and let me give another plug for Exit Stage Right, right? Did you know I'm thanked in the credits of that book?
You are?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so happy. Good, I got it right.
I think I helped you proofread.
Did you?
Or,
you did a reading of it. Well, thanks again.
Yeah,
I mean,
of course.
It's been a dozen years since I published it, so I don't remember everything. But I want to say really quickly too is that one thing I found in my research for this book is that even my friends who are making 6 figures as performers or 7 figures as performers, they all had another job as well. And it wasn't necessarily to make money. It was because the industry is so up and down. They needed something else that was within their control. So I had a friend who was on Broadway and has been in movies, and she also has an Etsy store where she makes things because she's talented in so many different ways, like everyone we've talked to today. And then I had a friend who is in a lot of movies, recognizable person, and he decided to like start a comic book label, you know, so they're all doing multiple things.
Yeah, it's my best friend, Natalie Joy Johnson, who I've talked to you about. I think you've met her. But she has been in the original cast of Legally Blonde on Broadway, and she did the tour playing Paulette. She was in Kinky Boots on Broadway for 5 years, and she's getting ready to open a show on Broadway called Lempicka about the artist Tamara de Lempicka, who is a bisexual artist, and it's her story, and Natalie's playing a lead role in that show, and it's her first principal role on Broadway. So the girl's done like 4 national tours and 3 Broadway shows, and yes, between shows, she sells edibles and sells sex toys, actually. Hosts these parties, you know, and it's like, that's a creative outlet for her, but also like a survival mechanism. So for me, what's helped is, I mean, you know this, when you go to an interview, you stand out. You find a way to like storytell. And that's what every professional job I've had outside of being on stage, people always just comment on like, you're just such a storyteller. And really, I'm kind of performing. And you learn that in the arts. I mean, theater shows you how to like go into a room, take ownership of it, and that plays out in every aspect of your professional life.
Yeah, I've seen that too. Since most of my professional work was in improv, it's like understanding the story the other person wants to tell and like matching that energy and making it interesting. That helps me a lot with clients and like with sales.
Well, yeah, and knowing when it's not about you. I mean, that's the thing, is you have to be able to like read the room, have your moment, make other people feel heard, and authentically listen to them, and that engages a real connection.
Thank you for saying that, because I think there's a stereotype that us performers or theater people, like, it has to be all about us all the time, but really the real skill of a good performer, a great performer, is that they know how to read the room and step back when they're supposed to.
Well, it's relationships. And that's why everyone who's done theater, you know, in their top 3 things they love about it, they're going to say the people.
Yeah.
It's because you take time to authentically really get to know someone, and you see them at their most vulnerable state. Like we did, you know, 18 years old on stage, like, we hadn't lived enough life to know what we were doing.
Right.
But we had each other and our other friends, and we knew we wouldn't fall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lifelong bond. I mean, we still talk to almost everyone we were in those shows with. And
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, it's such a gift. One piece of advice maybe for the kids out there that are thinking about, you know, maybe even just trying performance and they're a little nervous, or maybe they're in high school and they're doing the theater thing and thinking about a career, like, what's your advice to them?
Yeah, it's so timely because I actually just 2 weekends ago judged the Oregon State Thespian Festival.
Oh, nice.
Which we competed
Yeah.
in years ago, and seeing all these kids present material, the best piece of advice I have, really, and no one ever told me this, is to perform material that you can relate to. It sounds so basic, but you have all these, like, you know, 17-year-olds coming in with Shakespearean monologues and songs from Les Mis, and they just haven't lived that much yet. But there's so much material out there now.
Yeah, now.
You know, coming back to Kinky Boots, like having this story that I can relate to, find something that you know what it's about, that you don't have to learn what it's about or
Right.
act, and just tell the story.
That's beautiful. I love that. Thank you, Michael. I adore
course.
you.
I
I'm
love
so
you.
glad. Yeah, family of choice.
Yes, congratulations on your show.
Well, thank you. You'll have to host when I'm on vacation.
I'm up for it.
All right. When we're back, the party's coming up this weekend in Portland. It's party time. Here are some of the events I'm most excited about coming up in Portland. Of course, get your tickets now for Kinky Boots, because if you wait until it opens March 8th, you're going to miss it. So get those tickets right now. And while you're waiting for that show to open, check out some of these. Now, the Biamp Portland Jazz Festival is kicking off tonight with a concert from John Baptiste. Oh, he is so beautiful and wonderful. And like, just watch his music videos on YouTube. It's like, are you kidding me right now? He is the best. We are so lucky to have him here. Check that out. And of course, other jazz events happening around town this weekend. You also want to check out next Wednesday, Black Grace. It's a dance performance put on by Whitebird. You can go to any Whitebird show and it is absolutely worth it. Get tickets for that now while you still can. It's a more intimate performance from them. And then, this sounds so interesting. I'm not even sure what it is, but it sounds so interesting that I already bought my ticket. This is through Pam Cutt's Tomorrow Theater. And it's The Intersection and Black Star present the Short Film Showcase and Revival. And this is what they have to say about it. Revival is an attempt to reimagine and practice what collective joy and resilience looks like in times of crisis. I need that right now. I don't know about you. So that is on Saturday night. If you go to the tomorrowtheater.org, you will be able to find tickets to that. There's still some left. Join me. Let's go check it out. And if you have any ideas or tips on hot events, hot venues where we should be shooting our show, please let us know. Just go to portlandteaparty.com and click Pitch Your Idea and tell us what you want to see on this show. All right. Remember, to change the game, you got to know how the game works. that means in the arts, that means as a creative professional, and that means as a Portland citizen. So that's what we're bringing you here on Portland Tea Party. We'll see you next week.